7311, psychosocial support at 722-6575 or 518-4157. Brought to you by PAHO, the OACS Commission, and UNICEF.
I can't stay.
Good morning and welcome to the show. Thank you so very much for joining us, for being with us. It is Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. And I want to say good morning to all of you locked in on the radio, listening to us on our radio partner station, that is Hits FM 92.1 and 91.1. Also, if you're watching us on the many different social media platforms where we are streaming every weekday from 11, that is YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and TikTok. I'm getting so good at this. And of course, we cannot forget those of you watching us on television on channel 124 UTV, that is underground television. And of course, for those of you also, I know you guys are working very hard at the hospitals and everything else. I know you guys are locked in as well. Thank you very much. The credit unions, Library Credit Union, thank you very much. Just the different places, teachers. I'm getting so many calls and messages of, people watching the show, so we appreciate that. And of course, if you are overseas, we give you all avenues where you could watch us. So again, we appreciate that. So, like I said, as I always say at least, we're going to get down into the issues and we will start here.
You know what they call him découché? Man. Shit. Still shit. After a while you realize it's just a bullshit bouillon. And you just adding salt and pepper each time.
We want to be able to have a final agreement on the structure of healthcare by the end of this year, and that we want to have the new regulations drafted and approved in Parliament before May or June. And then we want to be able to implement the new health insurance and the new processes within healthcare by the end of 2019.
We need to come to terms with the fact that we are in a healthcare crisis, and this government is trying to find a unique way to both run our hospital in a way that it can be economically viable and also offer the services it needs to the St. Lucian public. We're looking right now, consulting with several different entities, providers, in terms of the best policies to cover an entire country and the way forward. This is actually going to be a pilot in St. Lucia for the OACS. So we will be looked to as, the litmus test as to whether this can actually work. So we're basically going to be a pioneer in this area. The national health insurance would basically mean that we're looking at coverage, let's say, to about 100,000 per person. And this would mean that St. Lucians would have certain health things that are totally covered, certain number of doctors' visits, there would be certain procedures that would be covered as well. Some of your medical supplies, those kinds of things. I mean, we're still working out the details.
I don't want to be accused of repeating myself, but it's important. Every day and every new service that we put into OKEU, before the health insurance comes in, is at the government's cost. Right? So if in fact we were to fully operationalize OKEU by the end of this year, which is what the intention is that will be on the P&L of the government.
How do we create this public sector, private sector partnership that's not necessarily exclusive to one entity, but it would be available to multiple entities, in order that our medical fraternity here could feel that this is not in any way threatening them. That is who we have to be able to work with. Our government has said repeatedly, we're open to discussions. So we're hoping that through dialogue and our commitment, and to never lose sight of who this is supposed to be for. This is about the people. But more important, this is about the more vulnerable people in our society who have been deprived for years, have not had that access. This is for the families who have lost money and now will no longer have to confront those decisions. This is about putting St. Lucia on a world level. This is immediately improving the quality of life of St. Lucians, that they're going to have access to healthcare. The goal is to have all final decisions made by the end of this year. So how it's going to be structured, what's going to be the architecture of all the organizations. So what we've seen elsewhere in the world is that to keep healthcare insurance costs down, that we must have fixed prices on services. So exactly how you have a NERC for utility companies, that all the prices have to be agreed to if there's any increases, is the same thing we're proposing to do in healthcare. We're also talking about having now a national health care authority, and that entity will now certify all of the facilities in healthcare, including the hospitals, and also review cases so that we are monitoring how doctors are prescribing and how the system is working to make sure that there's no abuses, so from a regulatory perspective. Once we've worked out the architecture as to how that's going to be, then between the months of January and June, we'll be now doing all the legal drafting, getting the drafts out, allowing everybody to review them. But the goal would be that by sometime in the summer next year, to go to Parliament and pass all the necessary legislation. We would then hope to have now insurance policies implemented by no later than the end of that year. So by the end of 2019, everybody will be insured.
We are going to be looking at a package of goods. These goods will be priced, and maybe sometimes that is why you're getting the negative backlash from some medical practitioners in St. Lucia. Because right now, personally, I believe a lot of the services that we get from some of our medical practitioners, these services are priced out of pocket. Many people, myself, cannot afford some of these services in St. Lucia. I go to Martinique and I get cheaper services. I can pay my transportation, go to Martinique, do certain medical procedures, and come back here, and it is cheaper than me getting that service here. So that package of goods is going to be priced, and doctors will not be able to charge different prices for the same thing. If you have a finger that needs to be amputated, it's going to be one price. If you have a finger that needs to be amputated, it's going to be one price. So
tous les jours. So, okay, the health insurance and what has been said there, what has been said as a campaign promise from 2016, and now we're in 2021, and you heard the Prime Minister, he needs another 5 years. He needs another 5 years. So you didn't expect everything that he said he was going to do. I mean, come on, guys. You should have known better that all the promises that he made, that you're expecting it. Why are you expecting it? He needs more time, so put him back in. That's what he's saying. And again, you're seeing all the promises then. I have to admit, when it sounds good when he says it's a vulnerable people and the social ills of society, less people will be losing, more families will stop losing so much money, he says. You know, the final decisions will have to be made. Now, when you hear these things, especially when we know the situation that we are in with healthcare, health insurance is, of course, something that people would want. Now, I think that the Prime Minister, in his way of, 2017, 2018, making promises that people would be insured by the end of 2019, that was the promise. So, again, taking people for fools. You've seen a 5-minute long clip where again, you don't even have the questions. There are no reporters to ask certain questions. So they're just allowed to just continue to spew whatever they want, trying to gain some points and taking people for fools as people are dying, as people are unable to afford health care. As we know, we don't even have an x-ray at St. Jude's. We understand that we are in a crisis with regards to health care. And that wasn't even with COVID. COVID party memla, and these promises were made and not kept. So I hate that we have to continue to do this, but just to remind ourselves, because we are getting some of the latest developments. But when these things are being said, a prime minister, no one should be allowed to speak about something as important as that could impact as many people as this. And of course, people believed in it. Promises are made by a leader, manifesto and everything else. And people say, you know what, maybe it can happen. I mean, and as a country, we have to look back on these 5 years and ask ourselves, what the hell did we do to ourselves? And I think, too, it is a very important issue when it's easy to go to NCN, National Government Information Service. You know, you're there. Not many questions are being asked. Nicole not going to ask any of the hard questions. So what about the actual journalists, the ones that want to know the promises that were made for the purpose of accountability, asking the questions? How are they received when we talk about health insurance?
You're complaining that people are attacking your wife.
I have no intentions of answering any questions you ask me. I said I have no intentions of having any conversations with you.
I just want to ask a quick question about the National Health Insurance White Paper that was supposed to come out last October. Can you tell me who is working on that, and do you know what the progress is so far?
Any other questions?
About the National Health Insurance White Paper that was supposed to come out last October. Can you tell me who is working on that, and do you know what the progress is so far?
So, ignoring Janica Simon, I think one of the best journalists here on island, and you have to ask yourself, of course, there is disrespect, but what is it? Is it that, you know, you cannot really talk to people? And since then, I don't think there's ever really been a discussion, any sort of interview with the Prime Minister on health insurance. It's only been, you know, the NTN and GIS and friendly places where they're allowed to just say whatever they want. That is what's being allowed, and we continue to see it, because just last night I saw more of, you know, the national health insurance talk already by the Prime Minister's own admission of having it done by 2019. We're in 2021, so we're 2 years overdue, and about 4 days now into his 6th year as Prime Minister. And we have to ask now, with elections coming, you know, the rhetoric have to start, the narrative have to start about national health insurance. So with all of what has been said, let's hear what the experts in the government, the ministry, I guess now, since elections are coming, you need to say something. And the Prime Minister, perhaps, clearly, he's out of his league with that one. So, you know, send the other people in, and let's hear what they have to say.
The government of St. Lucia remains committed to ensuring equal and equitable access to healthcare for all St. Lucians. The government is currently in talks with the World Bank and other stakeholders to determine which national health insurance (NHI) modality is best suited to the population and its objectives. The Ministries of Health and Finance recently provided an update on NTN's program issues and answers. Jessie Leos reports.
National Health Insurance, or NHI, is a prepaid mechanism through which an individual in a country can access healthcare without paying out of pocket. As part of efforts to strengthen St. Lucia's public healthcare system and ultimately a means to attain universal healthcare, the government of St. Lucia is moving ahead with the introduction of NHI. The purpose is to provide all legal residents of St. Lucia with low-cost insurance policies irrespective of their socio-economic status. The state is especially committed to purchasing policies on behalf of residents who are unable to afford the policy due to poverty or unemployment. Chief Economist in the Ministry of Finance, Janai Leos, says the government is now conducting analysis to determine the extent of its role in purchasing premiums.
One of the things that we have been working with the World Bank and our other stakeholders as we are in the design element is to address which modality is best. So would it be best for the state to purchase all of the policies and then have persons who are poor and vulnerable receive from the state, and also persons who are not poor and vulnerable but would like to purchase insurance to do that for the state as well? Or would it maybe best to have the state simply focus on the poor and vulnerable and allow your non-poor to be able to access through their employer, through a provider of their choice, and so forth?
The government is also meeting with insurance providers to design annual standardized insurance policies with terms changing every 2 to 3 years at an affordable price point.
Right now, we are in discussion with private health insurance because they've submitted proposals, but what we envisage is that it will encompass a range of services such as inpatient care, outpatient care. We would have surgical benefits. We are envisaging to have air ambulance, but it's an ongoing discussion with the health insurance providers. It is not set in stone, but it is our vision for the health insurance to have those sort of coverage for the population.
In addition to waiving fees so that the poor and vulnerable are pooled into NHI, the self-employed and informal sector will also be required to join. The NHI will also break through traditional eligibility barriers for residents 65 years and older, as well as residents who have pre-existing medical conditions.
When you look at your non-working age, so 65 and above, they cannot have insurance even if they wanted to, or they have the financial means to. So the discussion with insurance providers is to explore how the entire demographic, age-wise, can be covered. When you look at the market right now, what you see is that many persons cannot get insurance because of a pre-existing condition. Yeah. So it's actually one of the discussion points that we are having to explore how can we move away from that so that anyone, regardless of they having a pre-existing condition or not, can purchase a product that is affordable.
In the first phase of the National Health Insurance, the Ministry of Health, as regulators, will schedule a registration drive taking place at designated health facilities through the Health Information System.
Okay, so once again, we're seeing here more sort of just they're still dealing and playing with the idea. It's still sort of an experiment. That's what I'm getting from that report, because you're getting people saying, these experts saying that it's not, excuse me, not set in stone, that is still a vision. You know, they're still going to explore certain things. And I think that is exactly the problem. I don't think that any real thought has been placed into that. When reporters are asking questions, the Prime Minister will not answer. You have this report being put out there. But what about when we have issues and we have to ask certain questions? We can understand that this is a campaign promise that was made, and 5 years on, 6 years on, that it has been a dismal failure. So when now people are going for registration drives in 2021, 4 days into the 6th year of the Prime Minister's 5-year term, now doing it when it was supposed to be people insured in 2019, you know, what exactly is that saying? And, you know, we're still playing with the idea, but this is serious stuff. And when you look at what is happening, you know, in America and what's happening in the UK with health insurance, these things are fundamental, they are critical, they are important, and it should not be used as some political game. And I think one of the experts in one of the discussions they were having about a few months ago put it in a very simple way, where, you know, two important things are needed when you're going to be doing these things, and I honestly do not think we have either of them at this moment.
The roadmap is expected to be completed within this financial year and will provide clarity as to the direction government should pursue. Marcus Bazan is a technical consultant expert with SocioPlus. He is a health economist with over 30 years of experience on a national and international level. He stressed that consultations with as many stakeholders as possible is imperative in the formation of a national health insurance scheme.
There are two basic rules for a good healthcare reform. It has to be very well designed and very well funded. If one of those things are missing, you might have a good system but badly funded, it wouldn't get you forward. You might have a well-funded system but badly designed, and this wouldn't help you either. So this is the best advice we can give, that both of those strain has to be complementary and well harmonized. And this is the reason why we like to bring together all people relevant in this process in order to have a common aim, a common target for the good of the people of St. Lucia.
The technical consultants acknowledged that national health insurance schemes have been difficult to implement around the world, citing examples such as the United States and the United Kingdom, but said, however, there are successful programs which can be cited as examples.
On the other hand, you have very small countries like Denmark or Switzerland or the Netherlands, where you have a common sense and a common target, and thus you don't have so much resistance within the population and the stakeholders, because everybody gives in a wee bit and everybody gets out something of it. And this has to be the process, and this is tough work to persuade the other side always.
I can't stay.
We can win this war. Get vaccinated. We're taking our life back. Get vaccinated.
The COVID-19 vaccination drive is mobile and coming to you. There you can get the vaccine. It will protect you from developing severe outcomes of COVID-19 and make you less likely to spread the virus to others. It will also help you get your life back. Most of all, you will be doing your part to help St. Lucia bounce back from this pandemic. Visit the Ministry of Health and Wellness and Bureau of Health Education Facebook pages for the mobile vaccine schedule, and let's take our life back.
Get vaccinated. This message is brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We can win this war. Get vaccinated. We're taking our life back. Get vaccinated.
People who are hesitant about taking a vaccine, my advice to you would be to first get information, and credible information. Do as much research as you can to educate yourself about the vaccine, so any problems or any issues you have about it or with it, you would be able to put it to rest. Also, speak to a professional, see a doctor, someone from the Ministry of Health. They would better be able to allay your fears or ease your worries on taking a vaccine. Now that I'm vaccinated fully, my 2 weeks expired with my second dose, I am really looking forward to things getting back the way they used to. Also, Carnival. I'm looking forward to having the line again.
Get vaccinated. This message is brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
This is Kizzy from the Hotspot, and you're watching UTV, TV for you.
I can't stay.
Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us. If you are locked in on radio, if you're watching on TV, or of course the different social media platforms where we're streaming at this moment. Now, I understand that for many people have been concerned, or just curious at least, of what is happening with Joachim Henry and his wife. We have been told, it's been out there on different news outlets and newspapers like Loop, that they were to come to the police headquarters and bring themselves in for questioning or whatever else. That was supposed to happen at 10:30, but my information is that that is not happening anymore, and the police officials have changed their minds and decided that they will speak with the lawyers instead. And again, with everything going on, and it's a situation that has a lot of difficult things, I think, to speak of. So for now, we'll hold off on it. But what I do have for you is a sort of press conference with the Henry's lawyer, the lawyers, in fact. They have decided to speak out and put out a short statement. So we do have a clip of that for you. That's happening as we speak. But this is what we have been able to get for you. So like I said, we will keep you updated as the situation progresses, but this is what the lawyers have had to say.
Your name and position?
Yes. For the record, Leslie Mondesi and Mr. Lon Theophilus appearing for Mr. and Mrs. Henry in this matter this morning. For the record, we want to issue a brief statement as to what transpired here this morning with relation to Mr. and Mrs. Henry. As you're aware, about 10 a.m. this morning, Mr. and Mrs. Henry were required to attend at the Major Crime Unit to hold a meeting with an investigating officer regarding a report that was made to the unit. However, about 9:30 a.m., myself and Mr. Theophilus, we received a call asking us to attend at the Major Crime Unit in advance of this 10 a.m. meeting. We attended and we had discussions with the police. So as a result of what our discussions with them, what was originally planned for this morning did not proceed. And also, Mr. and Mrs. Henry were not required to make any appearance at the Major Crime Unit. We've been informed that this matter will be handled differently. However, Mr. Theophilus and myself, we remain committed at any time to defend our clients in the future should the need arise in relation to this particular matter. And we wish to thank you for attending here this morning and for listening to us this morning.
Just
Thank you.
just to clarify, just tell us exactly what transpired in relation to what Mr. Henry was summoned. Just tell us what led up to that.
Okay, a report was made. He was required to come in to have a discussion with the investigating officer. However, before that, we were informed, no, their presence was not required.
Mr. Manis, my question is, was why meet at major crimes, the incident, a certain infraction that Mr. Henry and his wife are being accused of, why major crimes? Isn't that for more serious matters?
Well, I can't answer in terms of what the police, in terms of the direction given, but we were just informed that to meet the investigator at the Major Crime Department.
And just to be absolutely clear, Mr. Henry nor his wife has ever been, who never arrested, and they are not facing any criminal charges.
As of now, no.
They've not been
The
charged
answer,
or
not been
any-
charged? No, nothing like that, at this particular point in time. Thank you.
You can, any questions for
No. Well, the question, I'm not sure if you're able to answer that, but then the matter, let's say moving forward, there is a charge and there is a criminal conviction in that sense. Does it affect his ability to contest the election under the Constitution?
Well, no one want to, is there any issue?
Or you could succeed?
Big one?
Yeah.
Lon, can you answer this?
Yeah, let him sit here.
Yes, hold on. I'll let my colleague, Mr. Theophilus, deal with that particular aspect of it. As a former candidate himself.
Yes, sir, just give us your name and your position.
Lon Theophilus, attorney at law.
Okay, and the question is Mr. Joachim would be eligible to contest the elections if he's been charged?
If he's found guilty.
If he's found guilty. The question was give a conviction.
There's a difference between the question of conviction and the stage we are at now, which is what I prefer to address, is that anybody who's accused of any offense within our jurisdiction is presumed to be innocent at all times. So whilst he enjoys the presumption of innocence, he can continue to contest as a candidate for the general elections. So it would not be fettered by what is happening before the court at all.
I'm not sure if you're able to provide some insight how it may affect any case that we moving forward. But in just the legal team's concerns about a month plus after the alleged incident, you're seeing that a report is now being made, and do you believe that there's some form of attack by some political games being played by Mr. Henry's opponents in relation to this?
Well, Miguel, I think we are living in very interesting times because we've seen of recent vintage matters which are politically sensitive finding themselves before the criminal courts. I find it rather unique. We saw it happen with Christopher Hunt. We've seen it happen with Ernest Hilaire. It almost happened with the Henrys and this young lady Roma, in Miku. So it should give St. Lucians an opportunity to take a snapshot of the state of affairs, which is rather unprecedented in our country, in my opinion. We would hope that matters of a political nature would be dealt with in another forum which we are more accustomed to traditionally, and that some matters are not being dealt with through the organs of the state. It is rather intriguing that we are now in an era where through the use of videos circulated via social media, that persons are dragged in before the police and hauled in before the courts. Some are done, whilst others are not. It indicates that we are living in a St. Lucia which seems to have two different options available to individuals, and that should not be.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
So, like I said, this happened a few minutes ago. A press conference with their lawyers, speaking with different members of the media. Like I said, we'll have to keep you updated on what is going on there, and I just have some questions like, why did the police change their minds? Why did you not want the couple to come to the unit anymore and instead wanted to speak with the lawyers? I wanted to, hours before they were supposed to be there, so that would be interesting to figure out what went into the minds of the people who, I guess, top cops within the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. What happened there to make you change your mind in such a way instead? So like I said, we will be looking at it in some other shows, but I think the issues there of justice and people using political power to ensure that some of their enemies or some of the people that are their competitors or whatever, that they have an edge or embarrass them. That's what I've been getting, at least from some of the people who have been discussing the Joachim Henry case and issue there. But I think it also stands to reason that we need to have a discussion on something else that has been said by the Prime Minister that I thought was madness, and that had to do with Eubaldus Raymond. And we remember that he has been involved in a few scandals in the past, and he had to be removed, or he resigned. He resigned. So with that being said, years later, the Prime Minister will utter certain words that I think it really speaks to where we are as a country when a Prime Minister can say this. Let's take a look.
Incident in my party, even if the person is innocent, because I believe that Eubaldus is innocent, even with his own innocence. Once he was involved in the situation, until we can get the full clearing, which I believe we'll get soon, right? Then he has to step aside. That's what leadership is all about.
That brief assertion made in passing on a UWP talk show marks the first public update on the Eubaldus Raymond matter in the 2 years since his controversial resignation. Raymond departed Alan Chasney's cabinet under a cloud of scrutiny in April 2019 after becoming embroiled in a second major scandal, this time involving the leaking of sexually explicit messages between the married senator and a Trinidadian woman. She was later confirmed to be a former partner of the director of a Trinidadian-based payment processing company, WePay, which had been engaged by Raymond's ministry to potentially provide services to the St. Lucian government. Not only has the Prime Minister's recent statement brought that issue back into the spotlight, it also raises several questions which linger since Raymond's resignation. What exactly does the Prime Minister believe Raymond is innocent of? What clearance is he anticipating? Are the matters against Raymond ethical or criminal in nature, or do they surround a potential conflict of interest? While the government announced an investigation into information surrounding Raymond in 2019, it has never been clear what exactly is being investigated.
When we understood that this was much broader than just the situation between him and the young lady, we felt that it was necessary to do an investigation. And because they were members of my family, my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, that were directors of WePay, basically I stepped aside and allowed the Attorney General to put together an investigation which is being done by several authorities in St. Lucia, independent of the Prime Minister's office.
Months later, in August 2019, I sought an update on the status of that investigation.
The information that I have is that the MLATs were sent off to Trinidad, which would then allow the team to be able to go. So my understanding is they're either gone or are going to go. I try to stay away from the investigation as much as possible, and I want to say that there's a difference between details of the investigation and the administration of the investigation. So on the administration, I continue to put pressure on that this be done in as a timely way, because again, I think it's very unfair to Dr. Raymond in that allegations have been made against him, and he has paid the heaviest price of all, and the fact that he's outside of my cabinet.
Since then, there has been no update on the status, objectives, or parameters of the investigation. When pressed on the matter sometime last year, Attorney General Stephen Julian insisted that only when the investigation concluded would the public be informed about who and what was being looked into. In his August 2019 interview, the Prime Minister emphasized that a lot remained at stake while the investigations continued.
He's a person I have a tremendous amount of confidence in, and I would certainly like to be able to use his skill set. So I'm kind of stymied at this point in that I can't proceed until I know that his name and the reputation of my government has also been cleared. So there's a lot at stake for me as well. I take this very, very seriously in terms of what is transpired, and I'm only hoping that the AG, well, it's not really the AG. AG is only administering the investigation, but the police are going to get this done as quickly as possible.
Chasney's most recent statements, coupled with his previous declarations about Raymond's capabilities, raised the question: are we likely to see a Eubaldus Raymond comeback? In August 2019, the media questioned whether there was a possibility of Raymond returning to government despite the multiple scandals sullying his reputation.
I don't know. I think that Dr. Raymond has talents, and he did make an impact in my government, and I was very happy with the work that he was doing. And I would certainly like to be able to use him, if it's not back in my cabinet, in a different form. But I feel at this point that I cannot do that. Both the reputation of my government as well as the reputation of Dr. Raymond needs to be cleared.
Eubaldus Raymond is of course no stranger to controversy. In 2017, the married senator was at the center of a scandal involving nude photos. That matter eventually resulted in blackmail charges being filed against 2 teenage girls. Despite calls for his resignation when the photos first surfaced, Raymond remained in office until 2019 when the We Pay scandal erupted. Since then, he has largely faded from the public eye.
I think that is, where we're seeing we're at. And I think we have had the discussion on vulnerable women, and we'll get to We Pay in a while, but for me we've had the discussion how I was disappointed, more than disappointed, the word is not applicable and not apt for a morning talk show. But with the female parliamentarians, female ministers who said nothing, of these 2 teenagers who had to deal with Eubaldus Raymond and the nudes that was out there. And when we have to think about that, for the Prime Minister to say that he believes Eubaldus is innocent, I think in that report you have to say, it's a good, fair question. Innocent of what? You have to tell him about guy, innocent of what exactly? So let's deal with the young women, and I spoke about that already, that these young women were charged with blackmail. They were the ones who had to apologize to the minister, a man of power. The man has power. The man was Minister of Finance to Bagay, and nothing has been said. He hasn't apologized yet, and Chasney insists years later that he believes Eubaldus is innocent. He believes Eubaldus is innocent. I want to know who is there in that cabinet to protect women, who is there to protect the vulnerable. Tout ça qu'a fait la Chasney pas rien pour dire passer ça. And if anything, that made me think too, what kind of man, who would be able to say that, especially when Chasney has said things in the past like this.
I cry. I cry. Because when I meet a woman a mother who has to choose between 2 children, 4 children, and 2 to go to school and 2 to stay home, I cry. When I hear people who are dying and cannot get on a dialysis machine, I cry. When I see young men sitting on the block and they're bright and they have energy and they have nothing for them to do, I cry. And I'm not ashamed that I cry. But it's because of those tears and because I can feel their pain that I work and I don't talk.
So, today, the Prime Minister, after saying that, and he will cry for all of the victims, the people who have been marginalized, the vulnerable and everything else, you still maintain that even as some investigations into whatever, we even know what the investigations into really, that you believe that Ubaldus is innocent. Your Prime Minister believes that Ubaldus is innocent. And more than that, what does it say of a man who, in his own words, he understands what it is, you know, you have your own daughters and, you know, you can empathize and that sort of thing. I cannot sit there and pretend that I'm okay with people in power, especially men, protecting each other, making sure that, you know, I have your back no matter what you do, you don't mind that, you're innocent and, you know, that's all you're saying on television, out there for the public to hear you, for the people who have been used, for the vulnerable, the women, children, all of that. Hearing a Prime Minister say that about a minister who has been accused of that, who has been in court for that, and even as the court system, you know, in all of that, the women, the teenagers were vilified and not the minister who was showing his penis in the office. None of that, but he's innocent. Let's go to the next clip.
Prime Minister the Honorable Alan Shastney has also called on the general public to desist from circulating pictures of victims and acts of violence. The practice, he says, is damaging the nation's moral fabric.
This is hurtful to the family members every time that they have to see it. This certainly will affect the investigation because it may make available evidence that we don't want shared. I'm appealing to all of us to think of what I did when I heard of these instances. I have a daughter. I have a daughter. I could have been her. So to suggest that we don't care, we do. I personalize all of these things. But more importantly, after suffering the loss of your child, to then see the indignity of people circulating these pictures, we're better than that, St. Lucia. We're better than that. So
there you're hearing the Prime Minister will say, and that was right after the body was found at Pigeon of a woman who was murdered and everything. But the Prime Minister there speaks about, you know, his own daughter and that he feels it personally when these things, these sort of violent things are being done to our young people. And I have to ask, if you really are thinking that, how would you feel if your daughter is an intern within the ministry and a minister has seen nothing better to do but to jock in his office and send pictures of it? How would you feel then? How would you feel then? And I think, as you know, as a country, as St. Lucians, we sat there and we watched as people, maybe they'd have family, maybe they'd have money, maybe they'd have your pan tit, your pan go no. It was not right. And then you hear the Prime Minister speak in that way. You have to ask yourself these questions, as you're saying, you're putting yourself in these positions as a father yourself of a teenage daughter. How can that be right? So knowing that, how can you even say that Ubaldus, you believe, is innocent? And that's just on one point. What about the we pay part now? What about having a business where it's supposed to be, you know, any governmental transaction that the we pay will be in charge of, and they take their own fees? They were expected to make about $85 million a year on that. You have your brother-in-law, you have your father-in-law, you have your wife as the lawyer of we pay, all of that. So your family's supposed to make money, kuma. You are the Prime Minister as well. You have the Minister of Finance, Commerce, Ubaldus Raymond, going to Trinidad with the owners over there. trying to take a blind for himself, you know, trying to make up a business so that when there's more that he would make his own. There's a clear conflict of interest in there. And let's not even forget the Pinkley Francis, who was chairman of Invest St. Lucia, also being a director, also there to make money as well. The blatant corruption is there. And the thing that you're seeing right there, you still have to question whether a man is innocent. Why? Of course you have to question whether he's innocent. Because, oh ma'am, your whole family in it too. Your whole family in it too. It's wrong. It is absolutely wrong to have all of that happen with a minister. And St. Lucia, to put back Shastney, what I hear Shastney saying there, and he hiding it. Voting Shastney is putting back Ubaldes. But just so that we remember, and just in case you don't believe me, let's take a look at what had transpired with that entire incident.
What is our relationship with WePay if you would?
We don't have one as yet. WePay is a company that has been engagement with St. Lucia and other countries. They have a technology process to be able to handle financial transactions. So for instance, if a ministry wants to be able to take online payments, that's the technology that's doing that. So it's certainly one of the companies that my understanding is that the Ministry of Public Service has been in discussions with. There is also a Singaporean company called Crimson Logic. I'm not sure that there's been any agreement so far with WePay, but that's what I know about them so far.
Those people take us for fools. Right. Companies Act. Directors. Richard Duboulay. Dunstan Duboulay. Pinkley Francis. Aldwin Wayne. I didn't put it there. Scroll up a bit, scroll up to see it right. You all see the two signatures presented for filing by who? Duboulay, Anthony and Associates. Duboulay, Anthony and Associates. Shastney's wife is a partner of Duboulay, Anthony and Associates.
So WePay as a new face, all we actually do is provide an easier way to get to the same point that you would if you went to the banks. So the onboarding process is what WePay made easier. At the end of the day, all your transactions, all your transfers, all your funds are still going to be managed by existing banking infrastructure. So you have the same level of security that you would have if you went directly to the bank to set this up.
Local businessman Richard Duboulay expressed his belief that this new payment solution can have significant benefits to local entrepreneurs.
What WePay has done is that they've adapted the credit card model to facilitate some of the challenges that most St. Lucians and persons in the Caribbean have, which is that the credit card penetration, because of regulations of the banks, has not been able to extend to everybody. And what WePay has done is that they've adapted that model so you can use cash, like they did in the cell phone model, to pay online. So that will facilitate businesses as well as individuals, so they can now make business a lot easier over the internet. So I think that's a huge advantage.
WePay is expected to create greater opportunities for local and regional entrepreneurs to market their products to international customers, as payments can be made from any.
In fact, our last outing was in Trinidad. Oh yeah. And it so happened that, you know, we had about 7 people. Some of us went on a fact-finding mission, and we ended up going there during carnival season. And the rest is history. In fact, our last outing was in Trinidad. Oh yeah. And it so happened that, you know, we had about 7 people. Some of us went on a fact-finding mission, and we ended up going there during carnival season. And the rest is history.
They call it job or something like that.
What's that?
Jab.
Jab. Jab is the devil. Oh, poor Jab is. Oh my goodness, poor Jab. Oh my goodness, that's what it is. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's what it meant.
Yes.
They're trying to make a big deal out of it because I'm supposed to be, quote unquote, a Seventh-day Advent. Yeah, that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah. With your job.
You know, there are people who came to me and said, "Look, Minister, when I heard about it, I defended you. I said that's not you. When I saw it, I said that's not you. That cannot be the minister."
Social media is out of control. And many of us are finding ourselves where we're receiving information. We don't know what the source of that information is. We don't know who edited it. We know nothing about it. So again, when information goes through traditional media sources, there is an assumption that you guys are doing your work and that you have answers to those questions. And certainly I have not met the person yet who can answer the questions as to who is the young lady, are the tapes that we have, all the tapes, who edited the information, and why would she be doing it?
That's understandable, Mr. PM, but this is a second situation involving Dr. Raymond as it relates to scandal. Clearly there must be some concern. You as the head of your government, there must be some concern and where do you draw the line?
Well, that's what I have to determine, but once I have all the facts. It's like in the first case. You know, I see some journalists suggesting I've been mute on the subject. What did I say? I said I was not going to be able to pass comment until the courts ruled. What was the ruling of the courts? What was the ruling? At the end of the day, am I allowed to use evidence that was not even admissible into courts as a precursor? At the end of the day, the minister embarrassed himself and he embarrassed his family. I have to. The government to some extent. But at the end of the day, he is without sin. Let him cast the first stone.
All right. So here's what. Is it that you don't like the word lies? It sounds too. It sounds horrible, right? If I were to reword it in a way that it doesn't say you lied, would that be amenable?
But it would be like still the same. And Wayne and I, when I really think about it, we never had a good relationship. Wayne used to come and visit his daughter, right?
This is not about that.
Well,
this is not about that.
It's about something the same in Wayne, and Wayne will have that documentation. And I personally don't think
this is not for we to use against you at any point. It is for a particular purpose. This letter is for St. Lucia matters, period. It is not for use anywhere else for any other proceedings at all. You understand?
But
that's what it's about.
That Wayne could publicly,
use it
publicly.
But the undertaking that the company would be giving me and you by extension is that it is to be used only for this particular thing because it is public in St. Lucia. Nobody cares about that stuff here. So that is what I need for you to understand. And I'm doing all kinds of magic shit here with my drafting to make sure that you don't feel bad.
Drafting.
No.
I didn't want this.
What did you want?
Well, I don't.
You didn't want any of it.
The night when I called, I know I wanted to find out if they can extradite me. I paid $750 for that, but I did not want nobody to go and talk or mediate any single thing.
That kind of business.
Money because I never tell you to go and talk to them.
Hush up your mouth, okay? Jeez. You will not be open to suit. The only people who will be open to suit will be NBC in St. Lucia if they publish something tomorrow after seeing your apology and retraction. That is it. So that's what I wanted to get done. And I want to get it done. Are you game? Can you do it? Or are you going to open yourself up for stupidness and long nights wondering about?
Now, we'll open the lines at 572-7588, and also you can call at WhatsApp at 484-7588. Now, with Ubaldes, personally, I think your downfall continues to be how cheap you are. Probably pay $7, probably pays it from now. I mean, I don't know. You in the life, do what you have to do. Now you're in this position, but I guess you're in the position with still the Prime Minister's, protection and support of you, and he believes that you are innocent. But when you're going over in Trinidad, and there's this woman, and she now has the recordings of you and everything else, and putting it out there, and it's so easy. It's so easy to get you to say things, to record things. I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean, I think there's a bigger issue there as well, because the woman that you had everything doing with back in Trinidad, she still has all that pressure being put on her by her ex-man that is in charge of WePay, to tell her, to apologize, because they have big people in St. Lucia, they have money invested in that, they need it for St. Lucia. So I guess, the directors of WePay and everything else, they needed that apology to make the thing pass. But still, after all that long clip, yes, but we have to go back in history. The Prime Minister, hearing and seeing all of the issues with Ubaldes, will say that he is innocent, will say that, maybe if he's not in back in cabinet, but you can find a position for him to be put back in there. St. Lucia, we cannot, I will not let that happen. Let's take the call. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning, sir.
Yes, I'm calling concerning that healthcare issue. I cannot understand. We have a government that put the road before the people. You are collecting 150 tax from the fishers, from the ordinary people that go into Viewfort and Castries, and you put in all that money towards the road. Huh? Why you didn't take $1 and put $1 towards healthcare to help solve that problem? What kind of thinking government is that? Huh? Bradley Felix is Minister of Commerce. I say he's a Minister of Commerce. Bradley Felix is fitting. You come in to Choiseul and ask Choiselians and vote for you. Huh? When you telling me you are putting road before people, Bradley, I want to know as what you are running this time. I want to know if you are a dealer. To make deal, you are running to make deal with your uncle Tiwakim? Huh? So Trisha, somebody else have to call and saying, yeah, I want them, the people of Choiseul, to know it is Bradley Felix that put the 150 on the road. He doesn't care about the people of Choiseul. So goodbye.
Thank you very much, Cole. I appreciate your contribution. And I think with Bradley in particular, I think many people, myself included, I'm a sucker for, you see the hair growing, like you're looking kind of dread, like he's his own man, he's not a politician. Bradley more politician than all of them fellas put together, except Guy. Guy is his own. Guy is good at what he, what he's an expert in. But Bradley too, I think a lot of people thought, he's a nice guy, good guy, a dread, you're not like everybody else. But he's worse. He's worse because I think he knows better and decides to turn a blind eye and in some instances join when it's in his favor. Let's take the second call. Good morning.
Good morning, Tresha.
Good morning, sir.
Tresha, so in addition to everything the vast majority of St. Lucians had to endure under this wicked, vindictive, corrupt UWP government. We also had to endure recently the sight of the Prime Minister on a UWP-friendly talk, playing as if the UWP is not in government and it's the opposition that's in government. You know, Tresha, I heard the man telling St. Lucians on that show to hold the SLP accountable because the SLP has not been transparent and all that kind of nonsense. And the man's statements, his rhetoric sounded so chaotic, like he was jumping from here to there. His whole demeanor, his body language. I mean, he looked like somebody who had completely lost it. And if you didn't know, listening to him, you would have thought that the UWP was in opposition and the SLP was the party in government.
Yeah.
I mean, I had never seen anything like that. I don't know what is going on with that man and the rest of the United Workers Party and champions with usual, yeah.
Christopher got it better than
you know, I mean, the whole thing looked like something from the Twilight Zone. I sat there thinking, wait a minute, am I in St. Lucia or somewhere on Mars? Am I sane? Am I insane? I mean what? I mean, you know, I just didn't know what to think. Looking at that man talking about giving his party another 5 years because what they had campaigned for was 10 years. So look at the accountability of the look at the accountability of the SLP. Look at the transparency. And I'm thinking to myself, what? I mean, how much more crazy can a politician sound? But again, Tresha, at the end of the day, the people of this country, who I believe had already made up their minds 2 or 2.5 years into the government, into this UWP government, will determine whether or not they get the additional 5 years they're looking for. Thanks, Tresha.
Thank you very much, caller. I think we've had one on hold. Thank you for your patience, caller. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. Sorry about that. Trisha, I'm very upset. I don't think I have a allergic. Yeah. Serious, because I cannot believe that is happening to our country. I watching those things and listen to those things. I know, what's his name again? The fellow from Forest here.
Joachim?
We went to school. Joachim, I went to school together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very good. We went to church together. But what I'm saying, somebody almost write off some people on the road from since Sunday. Somebody took his van and almost write off people on the road in Mark. Up to now, the police never come and say nothing. Okay? Champagne and them was enjoying that. Okay? Dr. Secret say if he had his van, he passing on the toll with his van.
Oh, yeah?
As simple like that. I know what I'm saying too again. I think the Adventist Church should disfellowship Guy Joseph. Yeah, disfellowship Guy Joseph.
Guy Joseph will disfellowship the whole Adventist Church. That's
because
how it works.
Right now I own Adventist Church, okay? And that's for the same thing I live at Adventist Church. And advising every young people in the Adventist Church, boycott Adventist Church for a while. Because if the pastors don't come out and condemn what Guy Joseph doing, because I have my daughter, my children go to Adventist Church, stop going to church. Close the church, it is Adventist, especially for us here. The mission of it, what's the fellow name from the mission? I'm thinking. So put a ticket to that because what Guy is doing it is wrong. And you mean to tell me I seen people in Flabo t-shirt all about Flabo for 5 more years? That's what I'm going to vote for 5 more years? That's what I'm going to vote for 5 years more years? No. It's time for solutions. I see a woman yesterday for t-shirt and for the mask, the t-shirt. I think if a woman had pride, she wouldn't wear that on her. She would never wear that on her. Because you see when I wear my red t-shirt, I feel like it's t-shirt like it not come out at all. That's to show you how proud I have of it. I can have a flabby t-shirt on right now there. And all that kind of nastiness that going on in the show there. Nastiness that going on there and the Prime Minister sit down. Do you get? That's why the Prime Minister sit down and allowing those kind of things to happen in St. Lucia. And you mean to tell me you want the next 5 years to what? So if you're doing that for 5 years already, the next 5 years, boy, even dogs are scared to walk the water.
Thank you very much. And it's not just 5 years, we're into 6 years now, so going into the 6th year. You said we have a call?
Hello?
Good morning. I think you're all fine.
Morning, Tresha.
Hi, good morning, miss.
Hi. I am so disgusted by this government. You mean only now, after 5 years of suffering, only now they choose to pay people $1,500 to vote. The same money that was supposed to be for the stimulus package. I just want to send out this message to St. Lucians. Please, stop selling your vote so cheap. Demand nothing less than $25,000 from these people. Because when you take 1.5 and put these people in power for 5 years, that's another 5 years of suffering. And 1.5 can only last for at least 1 month. So sell your votes if you all want nothing less than 25, at least 25,000. You all know you all can start a business and live off that for the rest of these 5 years. So St. Lucians, please be smart and do not sell your votes so cheap and don't let that government take you for
Thank you for your contribution, miss. Thank you. But caller, I do not believe that your vote must cost anything. I do not believe that it's 5,000, 25,000, 30,000. You know, it just goes on to the same premise that they all have, that you're up for sale. Your vote is there for sale. And $25,000, where you get that calculation from? I do not think that that is the advice that you give to people when you think of the 5 years. And even then, $25,000 spread out on 5 years, it doesn't make any sense. And it's not the figure, it is the principle. It is knowing that what is right and what is wrong is wrong. There is no amount of money that can buy anybody's vote. What I do believe in, because of where I'm from, that, if these people want to insult you by even thinking that your vote is for sale, take it, vote them out, So caller, I disagree with you very, very strongly on that one. I do not believe anybody should even, have a price, have a cost on something as integral as, the vote, as the principle of democracy, as putting in people that care about you. It's not just about the money, it's about the principles throughout the 5 years. We've seen the disrespect. We've seen even now that when people need income assistance, that they do not get it. Subventions are being taken from people. These are the things that are important, not buying vote at any cost. It is wrong. Any cost, caller, any. And I think we've come to the end of the show, but I do just want to say that I'm still on that Chastity statement about Ubaldes, that, he is innocent in his mind, and we know that Richard Duboulet, your brother-in-law, and Dunson Duboulet, your father-in-law, and then you have Pinkley Francis, then you have your wife Raquel, all of them involved in WePay. Of course you think Ubaldes is innocent. Why wouldn't you? But I also speak about the other issue where young people, women especially, are being used by men in power, and even when they are caught, they are not brought into account. There is no accountability. That is wrong. Having a cabinet, I do not want it where there is a minister who admits that he will hit a woman, and I don't care about the explanation, admitting that you're hitting women. Then you have women in the cabinet too who do not stand up for anything, any of the issues that we see women being battered. They do not come out to speak. Sarah Flood-Bober, I don't know where Chassis stands on abortion, but years before she was making a big ruckus about it. That cannot be right. We need somebody to care about us. And I do not want a prime minister who believes that somebody who can jock in an office for a teenager, have it out there, while the teenagers are the ones who have to be on $10,000 bail. They are the ones to apologize. They are the ones being charged. There's no real justice in that, and I do not want that. I do not want that anymore in this country. And I say shame on the Prime Minister for even in all of this, even in all of what I've shown you, saying that this man is innocent, even still as it's under investigation. So, you know what, that's where my mind is at. That's where my mind is at. That's the show. I hope to see you tomorrow, as always. See Body of Lay at 11, where we continue to speak about these things with honesty, in the most honest way that we can, where we speak our truth. Until then, please have a good day until I see you next.
Incident in my party, even if the person is innocent, because I believe that Ubaldo is innocent, even with his own innocence. Once he was involved in the situation, until we can get the full clearing, which I believe we'll get soon, right? Then he has to step aside.
I can't